Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Now, every time that there is a new major league announcement, there's always a couple of little Easter eggs hidden in there. You might notice that I've got this to 55 seconds. Those of you that have played during leagues that have ancient Reliquary Keys might recognise this screen. But anyways, that's enough of that. Why don't we talk about Conquerors of the Atlas? And I'm going to start by playing through the official trailer and just pointing out a couple of things that I think are worth mentioning. So firstly, it's thematically awesome. Zana talking about how our patch 3.1 through 3.8 characters are just a little bit loot mad.
Listen carefully, for this is important. I worked with a group of exiles once, much like yourselves. Together, we faced a terrible evil that plagued the Atlas and threatened our world. Through great perseverance, we were able to defeat the Elder. But it wasn't enough. They kept going back. Over and over, again and again. There was something inside them that could never be satisfied. They sought more power, more prestige. They sought to rule and conquer those strange lands. Each time they returned, I feared more and more what they were becoming. So I did what I thought was right. I sealed them in the Atlas forever.
Well, that explains what happens to all of our characters at the end of a league. It looks like Zana just dumps them in the Atlas, gives them a one-way ticket to the Netherrealm, where they disappear, they go and become legacy characters or something like that. But basically, Zana is talking about how our characters have gone loot mad, and they've just been losing their sanity and their humanity. There's a couple of hints of maybe a micro Act 11 that will come up in a sec, and then we'll get to the mechanical info, which is why you're probably watching this video.
They found a way back.
I love this scene. So there's this new endgame story, and now at this point, I'm going to pause it and discuss some of the mechanics when they come up. So here you'll see the ability to socket the Atlas. And this is something that is partially explained here, but that was discussed a little bit more during the Grinding Games official official deep dive at ExileCon. Basically what happens is, you will gain, I'm calling them League Stones at the moment, that's not their correct name, but you'll gain Watch Stones is what they're correctly called, for various accomplishments in fighting the bosses, which are essentially exiles from patches 3.1 through 3.8 that have gone mad. They're no longer recognizable as exiles, so they won't look like rogue exiles, they'll look like a traditional boss. When you beat them, what will happen is that they will transform their section of the Atlas. So the Atlas is broken off into 6 different components, I believe. Let's have a quick look here. We've got northwest, we've got southwest, we've got west, oh yeah, this is inner northwest, inner southwest. Actually looks like it's 8 sections there. So each of them has these watch stones that can be socketed into them, and you'll pick up more and more of those as you go through. But this is what a fully leveled up Atlas looks like in the Conquerors of the Atlas world. However, before then, you'll have many maps missing, and you'll see that when we return to the official trailer. And pay attention, you'll see that there's a number of maps that will appear in here. So some of the ones that will appear specifically to watch for, Graveyard will be added by the tier 1 stone, and Crystal Ore, which is down here, will be pushed from yellow maps into red maps. When the second tier stone is added, the Silly Wolf unique map will be added as well, which presumably means Underground River as well. So here's the green stone going in, and that added the Graveyard map. Here's the blue stone, adds more maps, upgraded fields, and let's just jump back a little bit there. It upgraded the fields map to a red tier map, as well as pretty much everything else is now a red tier. It's added a new unique map, and so yeah, there's certainly a lot of changes that will happen each time that you upgrade one of these stones. So I think these will be pretty big milestones that will come up. And now there's the influence items. This is a major thing that's not really explained very much in the official material outside of ExileCon. At ExileCon, I got to talk to one of the devs who's involved in itemization. And we had a chat now about one of their goals was to break up the current Shaper and Elder items so that their mod pool is largely split across 4 different factions in the future, but so that you can mix and match items. So at the moment, it is completely impossible to get a weapon that has the Elder mod, socketed gems are supported by level 20 Fortify on a 2-handed weapon. In conjunction with the Shaper mod, this weapon has a chance to deal double damage. However, this is changing in the Conquerors of the Atlas expansion. And what I think is going to be the feeling of this is that the early crafting that you can do with your influenced items is not going to be as absurdly powerful as early crafting on Shaper and Elder items is. However, the ceiling might actually be higher, and we'll see why in a sec. In fact, no, we will not see why in a sec. That is in the other section that this information comes from, which is the Path of Exile website, where you have these things like Crusader's Exalted Orb. Enchants a rare item with a new Crusader modifier. These are insane. These are absolutely nuts. We also have support gem pluses. These drop as uncommon but not staggeringly rare drops, at least as far as we could gather from ExileCon, from the mini bosses of the expansion. So think of these as being the equivalent of the Constrictor. These will drop. They take a lot of XP to level up. Comparable, it seems, to... comparable, in fact, slightly more than a 0 quality Empower or Enlighten. However, they get most of their power at level 1, at least as far as I've seen. Have a look at this Fork Plus support. Firstly, ignore the second line, and already you see projectiles from supported skills Fork. Supported skills deal 12% more projectile damage. That's already better than a level 20 Fork. I believe that's a level 22 Fork. Now have a look at this second line. Projectiles from socketed skills Fork an additional time. This is batshit insane as far as providing your spread of your projectile skills. If you can fire a projectile skill that can get good mileage out of this Fork Plus, it is going to be absolutely nuts. And it's not the only one of them. We'll also see the Greater Multiple Projectiles Plus, which adds 5 projectiles at only a 30% penalty to damage. And we will also see Ancestral Call, which is bonkers. Here's Ancestral Call Plus. So supported strike skills target 3 additional nearby enemies. Here's Greater Multiple Projectiles Plus, and you'll see supported skills deal 30% less projectile damage and fire 5 additional projectiles. So that's a considerable upgrade on GMP. And now we have the new bow skills and supports that are being added. The one that I really want to point out here, because there's a lot that we don't know about the bow skills as yet, but the key thing is Barrage is being overhauled. Barrage is currently an active skill. It's being changed so that Barrage will now be Barrage support. What Barrage is going to do is change the firing trajectory of a bow skill. It can be bows or wands, so that that bow or wand skill fires in the same sort of pattern as a Barrage. And you will see in a second that this player here is going to fire off a barrage, no pun intended, of elemental hits. And that looks really spicy. So we'll see that in a sec. The other thing that I want you to think about is using Barrage as a support gem on Power Siphon. Power Siphon fires a lot of projectiles as it is. It's a pretty good skill already. It's not good enough because wands have been a bit lackluster, but I think it's got a lot of potential. Here we go. Elemental Hit. That I believe was Elemental Hit on a... in fact, I'm going to show that again. Elemental Hit with Barrage support attached. You can see here that there's all these fire explosions. Before that, I think there was another element being set off here. And now we have all sorts of other skills as well. These are some of the new boss fights. Now, there's not much on the new boss fights available yet. I don't actually believe they're completed. However, The last thing that comes up here, of course, is releases December 13. This is a week later than originally planned, and to be honest, I'm glad of that. I'd rather they take the time to get it right. And lastly, here is a completed atlas, just so that you can see this. This is from the GGG website. I want to also, though, having gone through the stuff that's been posted in the trailer, there's also more information that's provided on the actual Conquerors of the Atlas webpage as well. So this is worth having a quick look at because there's more information on Support Gem Pluses here. So firstly, the Conquerors of the Atlas thing, this just tells the storyline of the quest, which is, the storyline of the patch, which is less thorough than the video, so there's nothing new there. 5 new endgame bosses. These are some screenshots of the boss fights as they currently stand. At ExileCon, we actually got to see some video footage of these. They look really impressive. They also look very unforgiving, although we don't know how powerful a character is at the moment. As is often the case, there's a lot of encounters in the game that you can start to trivialize by having more gear. However, 2 things that do need to be said that were announced at ExileCon. One of them is that monster hit points in high tier maps are going to go up. And secondly, that the highest performing skill in the game, Tornado Shot, is going to be nerfed. And it's going to be nerfed hard. We don't have any specific details on how that's going to happen, but it was announced to cheers during one of the panels, and I was certainly one of the people cheering. It's one of those things where Tornado Shot is so brokenly overpowered that you feel almost like you're cheating if you use it, but you feel like you're cheating yourself if you don't. I don't think that's good for the game, and I'm happy to see it go away. This is another one of the boss fights. So there's a number of tiles that he makes dangerous at some point. There are some other tricky mechanics with those that we haven't seen enough footage to work it out. And then there's just this not an action shot, but just a general pose of one of the other bosses that looks really, really intimidating. However, not much information on the new endgame bosses. Here's the Atlas mechanics. One thing that's added here is that you can raise the level of the entire Atlas so that every map is between level 14 and 16. I think this is going to be really transformative of how we play. Firstly, I don't think it's possible anymore to force only a single map of a single tier to drop. So for instance, one strategy that I had considered running in the last league was setting up my Atlas in such a way that the only tier 16 map that could drop for me was a lair. I don't believe that's the case anymore. I don't believe you can get it down to 1. You might be able to get it down to 2 or 3. I think that's going to add a lot more variety at some expense of control. Additionally, there's the ability to basically change your Atlas strategy on the fly by socketing and unsocketing these watchstones as you want to. That's going to be great. So I think from the point of view of people that just want to do one map over and over and over again and target a specific divination card, these changes will hurt that playstyle. But for people like myself that prefer a bit more variety at endgame, I think it'll be a positive. Here's some more support gem pluses. Added cold damage plus support. This is bonkers. Firstly, it's got that 227 to 341 added cold damage, which is nuts. And it's got that +1 to the level of supported cold skill gems. This is going to be absolutely bonkers in conjunction with the with Herald of Ice in particular, I believe. And I think we will see many an auto bomber build or an alternative, very heavy Herald focus builds that will be abusing this gem as soon as they can get their hands on it. Blasphemy plus, come back to that in a sec. Here's another Ancestral Call plus. We've already discussed this, but this gives a bit of a sense of what the quality does, and it's quite a powerful quality effect. Extra targets for supported gems can be found 11% further away, so that's powerful. You definitely want that at 20%. And there's Fork plus again. Up Blasphemy plus. This one might be a little bit tricky to see what's going on. One of the big things is that leveling this from 1 to 2 appears to have dropped the mana reservation override down to 34%. That is a big deal on Blasphemy. It's every point of reservation counts, and you can really, I think you'll be able to really get a lot out of using Blasphemy Plus with or without using it in conjunction with a high-level Enlightened gem. The other thing I'm really liking about these gems is that they're going to take a long time to level, which means that you're going to keep improving your character's gems into endgame, and you'll have this slow incremental progress where your character works just fine with a level 1 plus support gem, but when you can get your hands on when you can upgrade it to 2, that'll be a small but meaningful upgrade that you will feel. When you upgrade to 3, again, it'll be meaningful, you'll feel it. So I think these are going to be a really interesting addition to the game, as long as the other content is difficult enough to support it. Here's a little bit more information on the influenced rare items that are replacing Shaper and Elder items. So here we have this Death Stride Stealth Boots, which has the mod, you have Tailwind if you've dealt a critical strike recently. Tailwind is kind of nuts. From memory, it's 10% move speed. 10% more move speed, 10% more action speed, and it lasts for 4 seconds. Currently, it's only available to Deadeyes. Now we have this Chimeric Visor Mind Gauge. Have a look up the top, and you'll notice that on the left, it's got a Shaper icon. On the right, it has one of the new influence icons. This one is double of one. I'm going to guess that this is Hunter, just from the thematics. You've got Crusaders, you've got Adjudicators, you've got Hunters, you've got Warlords. I can't see this green tentacles being anything other than Hunter, so I'm just going to assume that's a Hunter. This one here could be a Crusader, could be an Adjudicator, and could even be a Templar, but I'm not sure. But it's mixed with the Shaper mod. And you'll see that you've got socketed spells have 3% critical strike chance, in conjunction with this mod of +1 to maximum power charges, which is an interesting combination and certainly makes for a very powerful overall item. It's been said that by killing the final boss of the new expansion, you will then be able to take 2 existing items with influence and combine them into one that has double influence like this. Or there is this Gale Collar Gold Amulet, which again has double influence. There's whatever that top left one is. That possibly, it seems like a Crusader and Hunter, I would guess, be the thematics of it. And just have a look at the absolutely nuts stats on this thing. +1 to the level of all cold skill gems, +1 to the level of all dexterity skill gems. That's not socketed in this item. Obviously, it's not, because it's an amulet. It's not socketed in a specific item either. That's everywhere. So if you're using cold and dexterity skills, like for instance, maybe you're using Herald of Ice with lots of links on it, then that could be extraordinarily strong. Additionally, these special exalts are incredible. I'm expecting these will be very rare. I don't know anything about the rarity, but my estimate is that there would be something of the something comparable to Eternal Orbs when they dropped in the game, which was they were still considerably more common than mirrors, but they were much rarer than exalts. They just feel like they do so much because they add a higher quality than average mod to an item. So they're like an Exalt Slam on an item, except you have influence over what's going to get slammed onto it. And as a result, I think this is a really, really, really powerful set of currency. In any case, so we'll find out how rare they actually are, but I think that these will be used in pretty much every best craft imaginable in the game. Got some more information on bow skill changes. There's a new skill, Ensnaring Arrow, which looks kind of juicy. There's Barrage support, which I was talking about before, and there's Arrow Nova support, which is a fascinating one. And then we have Ballistas. Ranged attack totems in general are being converted into ballistas, but there's also a couple of new ballista-specific skills that are being added. These could be interesting. I generally find that the playstyle of totems tends to be too slow for my taste, but by all means, give it a shot if you're interested in it. And then we have this section, Powerful New Items. I'm just going to leave the first one alone for a second, come back to it. Hands of the High Templar is a fun item. I don't think it's very good, but it is going to be a lot of fun. This can be varled multiple times, and the implicit modifiers can stack. Leash of Ablation is one of those items that allows you to be a jack of all trades that's actually useful. There's a high opportunity cost to giving up your belt slot for this item, but I think there is enough power in it potentially for it to be worthwhile. 25% reduced effective offerings is considerable, but it's not unmanageable. 50% reduced duration is a real pain in the ass. But still, I think that being able to have an offering of each type on yourself is considerable. Now we have 2 divination cards. I'll start with the Chosen. So there is I commissioned a divination card for Skin of the Loyal with 2 implicit corruption. This is going to look similar at first, but they're actually quite different. Skin of the Lords is the upgraded version of Skin of the Loyal. It is an always corrupted item. It has the same stats as Skin of the Loyal, plus a drawback, plus a random keystone. So a random keystone, if you're lucky, can be phase acrobatics, and if you're unlucky, it can be something totally rubbish. But this is a potentially very powerful item because it will allow your build to pick up keystones that are on the very furthest end of the passive tree away from you. That can be very strong. As a result, I think that this is going to be a fun, high variance divination card to turn in. And lastly, the best flask in the game is Bottled Faith. It only drops from the Cortex. The Cortex is pretty rare. This divination card is going to be rare. It's going to be precious. It's going to be very sought after, but the fact that it exists will ensure that the Bottled Faith flask is more available in future leagues. Mana Storm. This is bonkers. When you cast a spell, sacrifice all mana to gain added maximum lightning damage equal to 25% of the sacrifice mana for 4 seconds. Now, the first thing I see about this is that I notice the item slot is a shield. And that's strange a lot of the time. You know, you think this is essentially, this mod is a build around me puzzle for casters, but it is a caster weapon. And the reason that I think they've made it a shield rather than making it a wand is because you cannot dual wield shields. This looks so bonkers that it's the sort of thing that you might actually want to try to dual wield if that was possible, which obviously it's not. So, if you have 4,000 mana, then when you cast a spell, you're going to sacrifice that 4,000 mana to gain 1,000 added maximum lightning damage for 4 seconds. Now, 1,000 added maximum lightning damage is approximately twice as good as being connected to a level 22 added lightning damage support. Approximately twice as much damage as a level 22 added lightning damage. And you can get much more than 4,000 mana if you really build around it. I don't know exactly how the best builds around Mana Storm are going to work, but I do know that they will work and that they will be amazing. Lastly, there is also the Metamorph League, which I'll come to in a separate video. There's some interesting stuff going on there, and there's the new supporter packs which are coming out. Now, this is just basically blatant ad. This is just GGG advertising what they sell to make money. I'm going to take a guess. This one in front is going to be the top tier. These are the core supporter packs. So these are the ones that come out once a year, that include physical merchandise and that can be quite pricey if you buy the top tier ones. I'm going to assume that this front one here is the core of the set, the top one, and then potentially actually all the rest of them look pretty spectacular. Wouldn't surprise me if this is the cheapest. So if the pricing's the same as the current set of core packs, this might be the $60 one, the $100 one, the $160, $240, and the $480. But of course, the pricing may be different as well. So the last thing I want to bring up is looking at this atlas. You might notice something missing. Guardian of the Hydra, Guardian of the Chimera, Guardian of the Minotaur, Guardian of the Phoenix. There is a major overhaul to the way that we access Shaper and Elder content. Yeah, there's going to be a major overhaul to the way that we access Shaper and Elder content, and it is going to be considerably rarer. So, we're going to get, at the moment, the access to we're often going to be offered one mission that will be in either an Elder-occupied map or a traditional Shaper Guardian map. when we do a Zana mission. We'll often, but not always, be offered one of these maps, and if we do them, we will get fragments. So the same 4 familiar shape fragments will exist, but there will also be 4 new Elder fragments. If you want to fight the Red Elder, you'll need a set of 4 Elder fragments. If you want to fight the Shaper, you will need a set of 4 Shaper fragments. If you want to fight Uber Elder, you will need to combine a set of fragments, and by doing so, you will make a set of Uber Elder fragments. Now, this means that you're going to need to do at least 8 Zana missions for every attempt at Uber Elder that you want to make. This is a really big change, and it's going to mean that items that come from the Shaper and the Elder and Uber Elder will be considerably rarer. It's actually possible that Red Elder items might be more common because Red Elder is quite hard to set up once you're flagged for Uber Elder. So I don't think this is going to affect the rarity of items like Nebulok all that much. But for items like Eternity Shroud, Watcher's Eye, especially Watcher's Eye, they could be considerably rarer in this league. Now, I have a couple of suggestions to GGG because I think they're going to be a little bit too rare, these maps. If you're a 10 map a day person, which is generally enough to do most of the endgame grind challenges. So if you're a 10 map a day player, then you're going to be getting 1.8 Zana missions per day. This is going to be enough to make 2 attempts per to make 1 attempt at the Shaper plus 1 attempt at Uber Elder per week. I feel like this is massively, massively less than we get at the moment. At least if you're in that category of 10 map a day player. And so as a result, what I want to propose is the following: that when you Val a tier 15 map, that it has a chance of becoming a 4 to 6 mod Shaper Guardian map, just like it does now, except that because they won't be on the Atlas of Worlds anymore, they won't be a Valor possibility. So if you take a tier 15, let's say you've got a tier 15 shore map, you Val it, and then it ends up rolling the +1 level outcome, then it will be a 4 to 6 mod, perhaps a Lair of the Hydra. I'm not saying necessarily always Hydra. It could be sometimes a tier 16 map that could have rolled anyway. Additionally, I'm going to suggest that if you Val a tier 16 map and it rolls the +1 level corruption outcome, then one of the outcomes is that you'll get an 8 mod Shaper Guardian map. This, I think, would make it so that Shaper Guardian maps would remain somewhat rare, but there would be a way to target farm them that isn't like some of the ways that you target farm master missions are just really unsatisfying. They're not fun, like basically just grinding a whole lot of tier 11 maps as fast as you can, running them white, so you just blitz to the boss, kill the boss quickly, then go into the next map, repeat until you replenish your master missions. That type of play isn't fun. I don't think it should be encouraged, and I think that the current rarity, the proposed rarity of Shaper and Elder content is going to encourage that sort of play, which I think is bad. So for that reason, say I propose that Valing tier 15 maps, one of the outcomes be that you get a 4 to 6 mod Shaper Guardian map, and one of the outcomes of Valing a tier 16 is that you get an 8 mod Shaper Guardian map. Anyways, there's a lot to say about 3.9, and I've already gone on for too long, so I'm just going to finish by saying I am really hyped about this league. Really hyped because the Endgame Atlas had been getting a bit stale, and honestly, as simple as it might seem, the decision to dramatically increase hit points on monsters and bosses at Endgame is going to make things feel transformative, because suddenly bosses that only live 3 seconds don't have a chance to do anything damaging to you, whereas bosses that live for 33 seconds, then suddenly their mechanics actually start to matter. Anyways, I'm going to leave it at that point. If you've got any questions, definitely fire away below.